They came from the stars, huge, dark ships floating above the clouds like shadows from a nightmare. The Zorkan Empire had arrived. People across Earth looked up and froze. It was like something out of a sci-fi movie, except this was real. Zorkan were known across the galaxy for one thing: conquest. Wherever they landed, they took control. Planets with stronger weapons had fallen. Civilizations with advanced technology had crumbled. The Zorkans didn't ask questions. They just demanded surrender. And usually, they got it. Their message was short and cold. It was broadcast in every language. This planet now belongs to the Zorkan Empire. Surrender, and you may serve. Resist, and you will be erased. At first, the world panicked. The cities went into lockdown. Governments held emergency meetings. People stocked up on food, thinking the worst was coming. And the worst probably was. After all, Earth had never faced anything like this before. Alien soldiers, alien weapons, alien ships. They had power beyond anything humans had ever seen. But something strange happened. Yes, some people were afraid. It was normal. But others, many others, got angry. Not the kind of anger that makes people yell. The kind that makes people stand up. The kind that makes people fight back. In a quiet military base, far from the city, a meeting took place. Soldiers, scientists, pilots, and engineers sat around a metal table. One of the commanders stood and looked at the group. He didn't shout, he just said one line: "Let them come." That sentence spread like wildfire. Someone posted it online. People turned it into memes, posters, even t-shirts. Let them come. It wasn't just a challenge. It was a promise. On the Zorkan flagship, orbiting high above the Earth, their general watched the humans with curiosity. He had invaded over 100 planets. None had ever pushed back. Most sent surrender signals within hours. But Earth just stared back. No surrender. No begging. No fear. Instead, humans were preparing. Zorkan scouts flew over cities, scanning Earth's defenses. They laughed. Old tanks, rusty jets, outdated missiles. The humans didn't even have space warships. To the Empire, this would be over in a day. So the Empire sent their first claw, a small but elite team of soldiers to land on Earth and force submission. These weren't just any troops. They were trained in zero-gravity combat, equipped with plasma weapons and covered in armor that could survive direct hits from lasers. They had never lost a battle. They landed near Earth's major cities, expecting people to run. Instead, something else happened. The moment they stepped onto the ground, they were being watched. Not by satellites or drones, but by people, civilians. Farmers, engineers, teenagers with homemade radios. All of them were feeding information back to Earth's defense teams. The humans didn't have better weapons, but they had brains, and they had teamwork. In one city, a group of mechanics rerouted a power station to overload when the Zorkan tried to tap into Earth's grid. It knocked out 2 of their armored suits. Another place, an old subway tunnel was rigged to collapse, trapping an entire alien squad underground. The Zorkan didn't understand what was happening. They thought it would be easy. They didn't realize they had just made the biggest mistake of their empire's history. They had underestimated humans back in that military base. The commander looked at the reports. Every city had pushed back. Not perfectly, not without losses. But they had pushed back. He smiled. "Looks like they sent their best," he said. Another soldier nodded, and he stood up, looked out the window at the alien ships above, and replied, "We're just getting started." The Zorkan Empire was angry. They had expected humans to fall on their knees like every other species before. But instead, their first colossum of their best fighters was defeated by what they called primitive life forms. It made no sense to them. Humans didn't have energy shields. Their ships didn't hover. Their weapons used gunpowder. Yet the first claw had been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and even outmatched in some cases. Not because humans were stronger, but because they were unpredictable. The Zorkan commanders refused to believe it was anything more than luck. They thought maybe their elite team had gotten careless. So this time, They didn't take chances. They prepared a much bigger force. Warships, mechs, orbital weapons. Thousands of troops. They called it the Second Flame. It was meant to burn Earth down completely. Back on Earth. People were already preparing. Across cities, people who had never even held a weapon before were now training. Mechanics were turning old cars into traps. Farmers were digging tunnels and hiding supplies. Scientists were staying up all night creating defenses with whatever little they had. Nobody was waiting to be rescued. Everyone was doing something. Even kids were drawing pictures of humans fighting aliens and taping them to windows like messages of hope. "We're still here," one of them said. The second wave arrived with a loud hum in the sky. Dozens of huge ships came down through the clouds. People could hear them before they saw them. It was like thunder that didn't stop. The aliens landed in forests, deserts, near power plants, and water sources. They didn't care about talking anymore. Their orders were simple: take control of Earth and punish anyone who resists. But Earth wasn't quiet this time. The first ambush happened just 10 minutes after they landed. A small group of Zorkan soldiers walked into an abandoned factory, expecting to take it over. Instead, they triggered a trap made from old gas lines and remote detonators. The whole building shook. One by one, these kinds of attacks began happening. Everywhere. Not from armies, but from regular people. Teachers, drivers, miners, families. They all worked together in one mountain village. A group of hikers used mirrors and sunlight to blind the sensors of a flying drone, causing it to crash. In another town, workers used construction machines to block roads and trap a mech unit inside a tunnel. The Zorkan couldn't believe it. The humans were everywhere, and none of them were giving up. In space, even more ships were waiting to drop. Reinforcements. But Earth's satellites, which once gave internet to people, were now being used to hack into enemy systems. A small team of coders, sitting in a basement somewhere, managed to confuse the landing signals, causing a few Zorkan ships to crash into the ocean. It wasn't perfect. People were still getting hurt. Buildings were still falling. But humans didn't break. In fact, the harder it got, the stronger they seemed to grow, in a command center deep underground. Human leaders looked at the reports. Cities were still standing. People were still fighting. The enemy was losing more than expected. One of the officers looked at the map. They brought in their heavy force. Another replied, "And we're still here." That night, across the planet, people lit small lights outside their homes. Candles, lanterns, anything that showed the sky. And the enemy above, one simple message: we're not afraid. The Zorkan generals watched the lights from space. They didn't understand. Earth was damaged. Earth was burning in some places, but humans were still fighting, still smiling. The enemy had never seen anything like it. They thought bringing more ships would bring more fear, but the humans had already decided they weren't going to be conquered. The Zorkan Empire started asking questions. They had never needed to study an enemy before. Usually, they landed, gave one warning, and the planet surrendered. If not, they crushed it fast. But Earth was different. Earth wasn't just resisting, it was learning. Back on the Zorkan capital ship, floating above Earth's orbit, a group of alien leaders sat in a cold room filled with screens. One of them leaned forward and asked something strange. What makes humans keep fighting when they should have already fallen? No one had an answer. So they sent down a group of watchers, not fighters this time, quiet ones, trained to observe, listen, and report. These watchers spread out across Earth, hiding in the shadows, pretending to be invisible. But Earth was already watching back. Humans noticed things. They noticed when a strange shape moved near their water tanks. They noticed when someone tried to copy their clothes but walked too stiff. Some of these alien spies were even caught by local villagers, not with weapons, but with smart thinking and teamwork. In one small town, the people pretended to welcome one of the spies. They gave him food, asked him questions, and smiled. All the while, they were recording everything he said, everything he touched. By the end of the day, the spy was gone, and the humans had new knowledge about Zorkan tech. The Zorkon spies did manage to collect some data, though. What they found was unexpected, and it scared them. Humans weren't like the other species the Empire had faced. They didn't fight because they loved war. They didn't fight for gold or land. They fought for their families, their homes. Freedom. They fought for each other in one city. A group of strangers helped carry injured people out of a fallen building, even while alien drones were flying overhead. No one asked who they were. No one needed to. In that moment, they were one team. The Zorkon Watchers reported that humans didn't just react, they adapted. If one attack failed, they changed their plan in minutes. One village fell, the next. One was already stronger. And no matter how bad things got, never stopped helping each other. One of the Watchers sent a quiet message back to the Empire. They do not follow one brain. Each of them is a spark. At first, the Empire laughed at that, but slowly they realized something terrible. Humans didn't need orders from a central voice. They worked in small groups, families, neighborhoods, all moving like one living wave. It made them hard to predict, and even harder to stop. One Watcher tried to understand how humans handled pain and loss. He watched a group of children drawing with chalk on a sidewalk, right beside a crater left by a Zorkon blast. The children drew stars, and spaceships, and people holding hands. He didn't understand. Another group of aliens observed a group of musicians playing soft tunes in a broken street. People stopped, sat down, and listened. Some cried. Some smiled. But no one left. It was something the Empire had never seen. Strength. In small things, the Zorkon leaders received all the reports. One of them, older and wiser than the rest, looked at the files and whispered, "They do not break." Another answered, "We thought they were weak." The old one nodded slowly. "But we were wrong. They are dangerous. Because they care." Back on Earth, no one knew exactly what the aliens had learned, but something had changed. The attacks became less direct. The Empire was starting to feel unsure. Humans didn't stop to celebrate. They just kept preparing, because deep down, they knew this fight wasn't over. But they also knew one more thing. The Empire had finally started to fear them. The Zorkon Empire was losing patience. They had sent scouts. Then they sent soldiers. Then a full second wave. And still Earth was standing. So this time, they didn't hold back. They sent everything. Dozens of massive ships appeared in the sky, darker than clouds, blocking sunlight as they passed. The people on Earth looked up, but not with fear, with quiet strength. Everyone knew what this meant. The real fight was about to begin. The Empire's machines were bigger this time. Some were tall enough to crush buildings. Others rolled across. Roads like moving fortresses. Their weapons could melt steel in seconds. They had studied Earth's resistance and now planned to crush it for good. But Earth had been preparing too. People didn't wait for orders. They moved with purpose. Mechanics built new tools using old machines. Farmers created hiding spots in fields, dug out tunnels, and even set traps using farming gear. Students built drones using toy parts and leftover wires. Even retired workers came out of their homes to help however they could. Everyone was part of the plan. One small town had no military at all, but they had something better: clever people. When a group of Zorkon walkers came through, the townspeople triggered an old dam, flooding the valley and slowing the machines. Then they used smoke and noise to confuse the alien sensors. Far away, in a city full of factories, workers turned their old machines into weapons. Welding tools became energy cutters. Water pumps were used to blast fuel into fire. Some even hacked into the alien signals, making their machines turn on each other. The Zorkon machines were powerful, yes, but they were built for war, not for Dazork. Thinking, humans were doing both. A boy in the mountains spotted a ship landing near a mine. He ran for 2 hours just to warn the next village. Because of him, the people had time to escape and trap the soldiers inside the tunnels. A woman who once worked in traffic control helped guide drones, using nothing but a radio and hand-drawn maps. She didn't have training in war, but she knew how to manage chaos. That was enough. The Empire's generals were watching all of this from orbit. They couldn't understand it. Earth had no single leader, no one flag, no one voice. But somehow, everything was connected. Everyone was helping each other. They thought humans would be too emotional, too wild to work together. But what they saw was something far more dangerous, a kind of unity they had never faced before. One Zorkon officer said, "They are not fighting as an army. They are fighting as one living world." It scared them. The Zorkon mechs kept coming. But Earth's defenders were smarter now. They used the land. They used sound. They used timing. Instead of open battles, they struck fast and vanished. And for the first time, one of the alien commanders on the ground sent a message back to the main fleet. "We are not winning. They know us too well now." That message reached space. The High Council of the Empire was silent. It had never happened before. Never had one of their own admitted defeat, not even a small one. On Earth, people weren't celebrating. There was no time for it. But in every home, every town, there was something in the air. Not just courage, something more, confidence. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that says, "We've seen your worst. And we're still here." And somewhere in a hidden bunker, a human voice on a radio said softly, "They sent their biggest force yet. It wasn't enough." No one replied. But across Earth, people kept moving, kept building, kept fighting, because now they weren't just defending their home. They were beginning to believe they could win. The Zorkan Empire was confused. They had done everything, sent the best soldiers, the strongest machines, the most advanced weapons. And yet Earth still fought back. But it was more than just resistance now. Something had changed. Humans were no longer just reacting, were moving forward. Small groups of fighters had started pushing into alien-controlled zones. They were not large in number, but they were fast, clever, and they knew the land better than anyone. Forests, cities, rivers, caves. Humans used everything around them like a tool. One team used shadows to sneak into a Zorkon base. They didn't have high-tech gear, just dark clothes, ropes, and silent shoes. They moved like ghosts. And when they left, they had stolen a small alien power cell. Earth scientists would study it later. Maybe it would lead to something big. In another place, an old radio tower was turned into a command post. Volunteers worked together to send signals across the world, helping people connect. It wasn't perfect. The sound cracked and faded, but it gave people hope. They knew they weren't alone. That mattered more than anything. The Zorkan were used. To fear, they fed on it. On other planets, people gave up the moment they saw a ship. But on Earth, the more pressure the aliens applied, the stronger the people became. Even those who had lost everything kept going in one ruined village. A group of survivors built a wall using broken cars, wood, and old bricks. They had no reason to believe the aliens would come back, but they still built, just in case. Because that's what humans did. They rebuilt. Even with shaky hands, the Zorkon command couldn't explain it. Their computers said Earth should have fallen by now. Their calculations showed that humans were weaker. But clearly, something was wrong with those numbers, because the humans kept winning small victories. But real ones, and slowly. Something started happening among the Zorkon troops. Doubt it began with whispers. A young Zorkon officer on the ground asked, "Why are they not afraid of us?" Another answered, "Because they think they can win." The first one shook his head. "No, because they believe they should win." Back in orbit, the Empire's leaders held secret meetings. One of them stood and slammed a hand on the table. "They are not a threat. They are animals." Another leader replied quietly, "Then why do they keep defeating us?" Silenced. Meanwhile, on Earth, something unexpected began to grow. Unity. People who had never spoken to each other before were now fighting side by side. People from different towns, different languages, different beliefs, they stood together. There were no flags. Anymore, no borders. Only one goal: protect Earth. A baker cooked meals for tired workers. A taxi driver used his car to move supplies through dangerous roads. An old man gave up his house to shelter a group of children. No one asked for anything in return. This was what scared the Zorkan the most. It wasn't just about weapons, or strategies, or machines. It was about the heart. And Earth's heart was beating stronger than ever. Late one night, a human scout stood on a hill looking at the stars. In the sky, the Zorkan ships still floated above, dark and silent. But the stars still shined. Behind them, he smiled. They blocked the sky, someone said beside him. He nodded. For now, he didn't need to say more, because now, everyone knew something the Zorkan didn't understand yet. The real power of Earth wasn't in its weapons. It was in its people, and that power had only just begun to rise. The Zorkan Empire had reached a point they never expected. They were stuck. Their ships still floated in Earth's sky. Their machines still walked through forests and deserts. But nothing was working like before. Their plans, once perfect, were falling apart on Earth. Things were different too. People were no longer just fighting to survive. They were planning for something bigger, to win in the cold mountains. Where Zorkan troops had built a secret outpost, they suddenly found themselves trapped, not by armies, but by simple tricks. Locals had blocked paths with rocks, snow, and wooden barriers. They cut off supplies using silence and timing. No big explosions, no loud attacks, just quiet steps and smart moves. One soldier from the Empire wrote in a hidden report, "We cannot defeat what we cannot find. We are being hunted. Yes, hunted." Humans were learning fast. They had started copying alien tech, building new weapons from pieces of fallen ships. Some scientists even made small devices that could jam Zorkan signals. Others worked on energy shields built from scrap. The funny thing was, most of these scientists weren't soldiers. Some had been teachers. Some worked in shops before the war. They were leaders in secret labs, helping Earth push back. But science wasn't the only weapon. Hope was just as strong. In every city, in every village, people were telling stories. Not just sad ones, but stories of bravery, of survival, strangers helping strangers. People listened. And with every word, their fear turned into strength. Even in the middle of ruins, children were still drawing pictures. Smiling suns, flying, birds, and sometimes pictures of humans standing on top of Zorkan ships. The Empire saw this and didn't understand. How could they still smile? But humans knew something deep in their hearts. The war was no longer just about saving Earth. It was about showing the universe what humans truly were. In one burned-down town, a group of people planted seeds in the soil. They didn't know if anything would grow. They planted anyway, because that's what humans do. They build again. Even after everything is lost, far away in a hidden bunker, Earth's leaders were talking less about defense and more about action. One of them looked at a map covered in marks and said, "It's time we stop waiting for them to come. Let's take this to the stars." The others nodded. Plans were being made, not just to protect Earth, but to fight back in space. Meanwhile, the Zorkan High Command was falling into confusion. They sent messages to their ships asking for updates. Many messages got no reply. Some ships had been taken. Others had gone dark. They didn't know it yet. Humans were already in space. A small team had stolen a Zorkan ship and learned to fly it. It wasn't easy. The buttons were strange, the lights unreadable, but they figured it out. They used trial and error. They used patience. And above all, they used teamwork. That small ship now floated far above Earth, hidden behind the shadow of the moon. Inside, humans watched and waited. They were not afraid. They were ready, and on the surface, everyone else was getting ready too. Farmers, teachers, drivers, mechanics, children, elders. It wasn't about strength anymore. It was about heart, about grit, about not giving up. The Empire had never faced this before. Not weapons, not numbers, but people who refused to be broken. And as the sun rose on another day, the people of Earth looked up again. The sky still held Zorkan ships. Yes. But this time, they didn't see darkness. They saw targets, because Earth had stopped surviving. Now, Earth was preparing to win. The final moment had come. For months, the Zorkan Empire had tried to crush Earth. They used their best weapons, smartest minds, and largest ships. But nothing worked. Not fully. Not completely. Now, they were running out of options. On Earth, things were different. All over the world, people stood together, not as broken survivors, but as one strong force. They were ready, above the planet. The stolen Zorkan ship controlled by humans slowly moved from the moon's shadow. Inside, the crew spoke quietly, their eyes focused. They weren't trained for space travel, but they had learned fast. They had studied the enemy. They knew what to do. Their goal was simple: reach the main Zorkan command ship and take it. Sounded crazy. Impossible. But humans had done the impossible many times already, while that brave team moved through space. Earth's fighters launched their biggest push yet. Not with tanks, not with giant missiles, but with people. People who refused to lose. From the forests to the cities, from the mountains to the oceans, humans came out of hiding. They attacked Zorkan patrols with homemade weapons. They distracted machines with noise, fire, and mirrors. Some hacked alien tech and turned it against them. Others used nothing but traps and courage. One group climbed the side of a massive alien walker and threw ropes, round its legs like giant snakes. It fell with a crash that shook the ground. Another team used a broken train to crash into a Zorkan supply base. It didn't need to explode. It only needed to cause enough confusion so others could sneak inside. Everyone played a part. Even children helped. They passed messages, carried supplies, and helped care for the wounded. The war had taken much from them, but not their spirit. Up in space, the human-controlled ship approached the Zorkan command vessel. The enemy didn't expect them. No human had ever flown so deep into their fleet, but that's what made it work. The humans entered the ship through a hidden panel they had found during months of study. Once inside, they used Zorkan tech to shut down the command systems. Lights dimmed, signals broke. The heart of the Empire's invasion went silent. Back on Earth, alien machines froze. Across the planet, Zorkan soldiers looked around, confused. Their orders had stopped. Their systems had failed. Panic started to grow inside them. Humans didn't wait. They moved fast. Clearing towns. Freeing prisoners. Taking back what was theirs. The Zorkan fleet in orbit received strange messages from their own command ship. But something was off. Then it became clear. The humans were in control now. One by one, alien ships began leaving. Some fled. Others shut down. A few exploded, caught in crossfire as they tried to escape. And just like that, was over. The sky, once filled with shadows, became quiet again. On Earth, people didn't cheer loudly. They didn't dance or scream. They just stood in silence. Looking up at the stars, they had won. Not because they were stronger, not because they had better weapons, but because they never gave up. Later, stories would be told. Of grand battles, of brave actions, but also of quiet moments, someone sharing their last piece of bread, someone carrying a stranger through rubble, someone planting a tree where a bomb once fell. These were the real victories Earth had been. Tested, and it had passed. The Empire had sent their best. And the humans? They smiled, crushed them all.